This lecture is for Design University AGD459 New Media Design, and this is the part of the machine illustration project. This is part 2, in which I go and I basically take sections of an image and I knock them out, turn them into different colors, and this is just my particular technique. So this is for an upcoming project this fall, and what I'm going to do is that it's actually a piece of my work, and I'm going to show you how I do it. It's actually a screen capture of a VR environment, and I'm going to turn this into an illustration. So I can't exactly tell you, by numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, what to do, because of the fact that what I'm doing right now is that I'm making decisions as to what I think is interesting and pulling those out, and then starting to play with those. There's a lot of different ways I could go with this. I could see, if you look at this building to the left here, I could just take that out and highlight that. I could do something with the sky. I could take each of these buildings and make them into something different. I think these are all interesting. I think what I might do is that what I'd like to do is I'd like to take, say, for example, this building on the corner, this red building, and maybe a bunch of these buildings going back here to here, and basically make those 3 different colors. I'll take the street, I'll take this side, and then might do something interesting with the sky. I'm not exactly sure. So this is how it's going to go. So what this means is that I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, probably 4, 5, 6, what I call chunks of pieces of information. And I'll probably, I'll have up to probably 6 to 12 layers. I'd say probably going to have about 6 to 8 layers because I don't want things to get too complex, because then the image can get really muddy. So let's get started. In this case, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just initially see what happens with the contrast. I'll just do an auto contrast. That cleaned it up a little bit. The other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is the fact that it's not, the horizon line isn't horizontal. Actually, I like that a little bit. It gives me a little bit of a strange, unreal quality. In film terms, is what they call a Dutch tilt. If you don't know what that is, go look up the idea of a Dutch tilt in filmmaking. So I'm going to take this section out. I'm going to take this red building out. I'll take this section out. I'll take this couple of buildings out. I'll take the street out. I'll take the whole left side out here. And I'm going to do something really kind of unusual with it, because if you notice that it's really muddy and it doesn't have any contrast to it, I'm going to change that a lot. I'm going to pull the contrast out of that a whole lot so that we can make a good piece of artwork. So, am I going to do something with the sky? That is a really interesting question. But you know what? I'm not going to worry about that for now. So, what I'm going to do is that, remember, all of this stuff, all of these things happen by grayscale. All this stuff has to be turned into black and white. So I have to pull these apart, turn these into layers, save these out at this size, with only the information that I'm dealing with. Because what happens is that if I don't do this, I'm going to have a really hard time getting everything to register. I need to have the field on which any particular element within this illustration is going to be on a field the same size, or I'm just going to have a lot more trouble registering everything together. So let's get started by, and I think I can use the polygonal lasso tool on this piece here. And I just want to take a little bit of this detail. And understand that since this is a pretty imperfect process, we can let ourselves be a little bit messy, which is actually kind of a nice thing. And see right here, I've pretty much got this part of the building. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy and paste it. Hey, look at that. That's fantastic. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to worry so much about processing this yet. But the one thing I do want to do is that I'm going to magic wand this area, and then I'm going to invert the selection, turn this layer off, and I'm going to cut this out of the main image. Oops, hang on. Got it. So I hope you understand what I'm doing here. As I go through here and take out the elements, I'm going to be progressively cutting them out, so I won't have to deal with them again. So as I keep working with this, I'll just have an empty area, and then everything will be separated in these nice, neat layers, which will be really cool. So, okay. So let's just leave this layer turned off, and I'm going to pinch in just a little bit. And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to take this section out here. So we can see that I'll just click and deselect. And this shouldn't take too long. A lot of this is pretty geometric. And take this down just a little bit because there's a little bit of a curve. And as I said, this is a little bit of a messy process, so I'm just going to kind of let things happen a little bit. And since there's this part of the artwork that kind of bends out a little bit, I'm going to go out and trace around it a little bit. And I'm using the polygonal tool. I mean, you could definitely use the lasso with a Wait a second. So that's kind of odd. Well, let me go and just reselect that. Let me just go down here, and I'm going to go, don't know why that's happening. So I guess what I'll do is I'll just go, and I'll use the lasso tool. And remember what I told you last time? When I do work this fine, I'm usually holding my breath. Since I'm talking, you can tell that I'm not. So and actually, I'm not using a pen, which is kind of interesting. And I'm using my trackpad. Ooh, here we go. I have to forget not to just loop in part of the sky. I need to trace this out. And the one thing that's interesting is I may not be using the sky as it exists here. Okay, so I got that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use, instead of copy paste, I'm going to use cut paste. I'm going to use Command X and then Command V. And then I'll just move this back into place. And it should just kind of snap back into place, which it's doing just fine. Okay, so understand that I have, first I have the one building, I have the other building, and let's cut out this. Let's cut out the rest of this left side of the left side of the street. And I'm not going to worry too much because I don't think I'm really going to use the sky as it exists. I think I'm going to put something else in there. Yeah, I'm going to do something actually kind of interesting. I'm going to, there's this little building in the background, and I'm going to cut all that out and use it for its own layer. So as you can see, there's all this really fine detail clear back in them, and honestly, I'm not going to bother with it. That's kind of cool. So that's one section. So remember, I'm going to think about doing these as different colors. Now turn this off. Now that I'm starting to get to the point where I'm really chopping this thing apart, I'm wondering about what choices I'm going to make. Well, in the back here, I want these buildings out because I think I want to do something special with them. So I see 4 elements that I want to work with. I want to work with the street, I want to work with this left-hand side, and then I want to work with these buildings, and then I want to work with the sky. The sky is probably the easiest thing to work with at the moment. I'll just turn up the tolerance on the magic wand, and I'll just, yeah, that's pretty easy. Okay. So, sky, done. All right. And by the way, probably a good time to start calling in my layers. I'm going to say left, rear, building. Say left red building. And then I'm going to say left corner building. So, also another thing I want you to understand, that in doing this particular piece, I'm probably also going to paint part of it. It's just what I'm doing. But in this case, since you're doing this completely digitally, you know, you're going to be giving me the Illustrator file. So I'm just telling you what I'm going to be doing. But you won't. So so I'm going to take the street out next because I think that visually it presents the most challenges to me. And another cut and paste. There that is. And so turn that off. And really all we have are two things left. There are these buildings in the back that I kind of want to do something with. I think I actually want to turn them gold. Why? I don't know why. I just think they're interesting. I just actually sort of like this, actually like these little rectangular shapes. I think they're really interesting. Let's see here. Oops. Okay, let me go down here to layer 1. Did I cut anything out? Let's see here, just a moment. No, I didn't cut anything out. All right. And honestly, I think we're about done. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to call this rear buildings. I'm going to call this street. Call this sky. I've got everything here, and then I'm going to call this right buildings. So, okay, this is the cutting apart section. That's done. What we need to do is we need to process this so that Illustrator and Stipple Generator can deal with this better. So what we need to do is we need to turn everything to grayscale, and then we need to really play with the contrast so it's almost black and white. And then what we're going to do at that point, we are going to save each one of these layers as a PNG, you know, or we're going to flatten, or a JPEG, probably a JPEG. Let's just, I just want to make sure that I've got everything in RGB. Yep, we're good. So, and if this sounds like it's a little more complex, it is. So, so what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to go back, I'm going to turn everything back on. And I'm going to work with everything layer by layer. And the sky back on. I don't know whether I want to do anything with the sky, but let me pinch back in. And this, by the way, this is going to look really weird because everything's going to be almost black and white, and the color's going to be gone. And the thing is, you're going to have to keep the color in your head. Keep the, keep a reference image so that you know what you're doing, and then also maybe in your layers, document what color you want things to be. So I'm going to go to the left color building. Myself, being that I've worked with this technique a lot, I can do this out of my head, but I don't recommend that you do it. I really recommend that as you're working with this, take a lot of notes. Make sure that you're make sure that you really, really build a sense of intention as you're working with this. And sorry, I selected the wrong thing. Desaturate. See, that's going black and white. That's going black and white. And a lot of this is just going to be playing around with desaturation. And I think probably the most difficult thing about this process